That's a good start. I don't think you even had the microphone on. Alright, I will wait for like a minute for people to show up. And if nobody shows up, I'll just talk to like other people here. I would like to think that a conversation about viewership and follows and stuff like that, that somebody that has over 400, that somebody would show up and talk. But maybe that might not be the case. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Nobody. That's okay. So I think we'll proceed as if people were here. I find that amazing, by the way. The day that I'm not playing Batman, everyone's like, I guess to be fair though, like I bet you a lot of people have that little notification thing on when I'm playing Batman. So it's like, oh, Dave's streaming again. Oh, Batman. Oh, Dave's streaming Batman. It's always Batman. You know, they see this podcast thing, they like look on their phones like, Dave's probably hacked or something. What happened to his Twitch account? Talk about shrimp. Absolutely not, Polly. Please get out of here. Welcome, by the way, though. I think it'll be good. I don't want to run this too long. I'll maybe make it shoot for like 30 minutes or something. Something like that. So we'll see. But shrimp is not on the menu, I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Or you can again join in. We can have the exact conversation that we had on Twitter. Like, no. You like shrimp, you can get out of here. Dude, it's been alive for what? Since 3 minutes and 38 seconds. That's some scathing criticism for something that has existed so little in this world. Like, right into my heart. That's okay. Okay, so I am really interested in getting this podcast thing off the ground. I was interested for a long time, actually. You still love me? Okay, that's good to know. But I'm a very extroverted person. Like, I've always liked talking. Give me public speaking all day in front of like 10,000 people. No cue cards, anything like that. I love that stuff. And I thought originally when I created a Twitch account that I wanted to do maybe like a podcast or something like that. And I do. So it's never really changed. It's always been like the back burner of my mind. So I think the most logical way to construct like the very first podcast is intertwine the fact that I have a YouTube account that's quite barren. There's like, I think out of like 136 people that follow me on YouTube or something, I have like 250,000 views. It's actually pretty insane. And I interact with like nobody. I don't post regular things. I don't do anything like that. So it's a very desert-like place where people probably go to die. But thinking about that, I want to post these obviously to YouTube as kind of like an archive thing. And then go back and create more and more obviously on Twitch. So maybe like live stream them on Twitch and then archive them on YouTube. But the whole point is I want to cross-reference both platforms. And I think the most logical way to do that was kind of maybe do an introduction and talk about why I created a Twitch account, what my objective was originally, and how that was different from YouTube, and what I've noticed in terms of growth and growing on Twitch, because that's a lot different than it was on YouTube, because it's obviously not like a live streaming thing. Holy F, you're handsome. There's actually, I'm going to mention that too. I'm not going to talk about apparently my alleged handsomeness, but I'm going to talk about that as well, because that's something else that I kind of wanted to bring up, and a reason why I don't have a webcam on usually. So I was interested about that too. But yeah, so I guess about 7 months ago, I decided out of no reason whatsoever to create a Twitch account, and it was pretty cool. By the way, this music is gonna loop the entire time, so I hope you like it. But I was under the assumption, okay, we'll create a random Twitch account. We'll play like modern games, maybe some retro games, and oh, Bovine, thank you, sir. Thank you for the host. I did not know you were here. Welcome, by the way. But I decided, we'll play some retro games or something. I thought whoever shows up, we can talk about retro, we can have a good conversation, good community or whatever. Turns out when you're a brand new streamer, that's a lie. It doesn't happen like that. There's nobody that shows up to your streams. It's like that for like 2 weeks, and it's like the loneliest place on the internet. It's so lonely. Like those first 1 or 2 weeks were like so lonely. There was nobody, man. But then something funny happens. People start to notice you, and people start to follow you, and they come back, and you start to build this community that's centered around yourself, which I think is actually a really cool concept, because there's nowhere else like that except Twitch. And I guess there's other services and stuff like that, but for the most part, if you think about it, when you are streaming, you are 100% that person's audience, and I think that's a really cool thing. So as I stream more and more, people started following me more and more, and this is where I don't think that I deserve the followership that I have. I don't think that I deserve the viewership that I have. So I think it's like 406 followers or something. I'm not quite sure. I stream like an hour a day. I don't pull like these 12-hour streams like other streamers do. I'm not good at that. I don't have the mental capacity for that. And I don't think I will ever do that. Like the longest I think I've streamed to date was like 3 hours or something. It was like Castlevania 4. So I usually stream like 40 minutes, an hour, that's it for me. And somehow I've accumulated 400 people. So I'm very grateful for the follows. And I'm actually very surprised, as I said, that that's even a thing, because there's other people that I started around the same time with, or other people that have grown in different ways, or other people that have tried to do different things, and they don't have the following that I have yet. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, is why? Like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? And especially like some of the things that happened, because right when I started, the very first person that ever followed me was on NHL 94, and it was a really horrible game. And I don't know, I streamed it for like 10 minutes or something, the guy followed me, that was it. Oops. 1 second, I hear the phone, I think. But anyway. Yeah, okay, 1 second, I'll be right back. Mute! Man, we're all kinds of fire right now. That's amazing. This is definitely a good start, you're right. That's incredible. Okay, so anyway, long story short, some guy followed me, NHL 94. I never saw that guy again. Scrap and start over. Okay, well, moving forward, I started realizing that there's kind of like different segmented communities in Twitch. And I thought that was actually really cool too, because you would think that if you stream something, somebody follows you, they'll come back a different day, and that's it. Like, you would think that if somebody follows you, they'll be back the next day. And it's not how that works. The viewership doesn't work that way. If you get somebody that follows you the first day, they're not going to be back the second day. If you have repeat content, they'll come back. But it's not always the case that they'll come back, or whatever the case is. So when I started originally streaming, I actually streamed Mario Maker. And in Mario Maker, I would say that community is amazing, but it's also terrible. And it was really, really terrible because the way that it was set up, like I would stream levels from from people that were like viewer levels or whatever, and people would come in, they would drop their code, you would play their level, and then they'd be gone. You would never see those people again. They would follow you, but then they would only come back if you were playing Mario Maker the next day. And that wasn't really good for channel growth. Like, I got a lot of people that followed me, but at the same time, there was not a lot of people that had like cross interest or cross exposure or anything like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because that was the first time that I thought, or I noticed anyway, that if you have somebody that follows you, they're not necessarily going to be back the next day. But then something kind of funny happened where I decided to stream Batman for like one day. I decided that it was like, I don't know, it was like a game from my childhood. I never beat it, so I tried to beat it. It took like 2 hours and 38 minutes. It was tagged as retro, I think, or Batman or something, and then people showed up. And I think the retro community was like the best thing that happened to me, because in the retro community, there is cross exposure. If you play something that's retro, like Batman, people come back for Ninja Gaiden, they come back for Contra, they come back for anything. And I thought that was pretty cool. But that didn't happen with Mario Maker. And it seemed like the more people that added me for Mario Maker, they're just like, they're dead weight. And there is some people that still follow me for Mario Maker, so I shouldn't say that. Like, some people do show up. There's like Butcher, he shows up still. And one of the moderators that I have in chat, Eric, he also shows up. So I am grateful that there is people that stuck with me after I kind of made the switch to retro. But that's kind of my experience. So it wasn't anything interesting. It was just more so, this is how I started, but I'm not quite sure how I garnished this following. With regards to growth in the retro community, I think this is where I'm very, very interested. I'm almost tempted to create like an Overwatch account, because I like Overwatch. I'm very competitive, as Bovine might know, in Street Fighter V. I actually can play that very well. And I'm almost tempted to create almost like a Smurf account, or like a Ghost account or something, not affiliated with this one. Stream for like a month, excuse me, just to see what it's like, to see how many follows that I get after a month of modern compared to retro. Because even though retro is a very cool community, it's a very slow community. Like, growth is very slow. So people that started with me that play primarily retro things, their growth has been like this. Whereas my growth is steady, but kind of like on a steeper incline. It's not as fast, which is not bad. Like, I'm not going to complain about it or anything, but definitely retro is a minority on Twitch. If you look at Overwatch right now, I think it was like 44,000 or something when I checked, and retro is like 400. So it's like 100 times the interest in Overwatch than retro. And that's something else that I found a little bit interesting too, because you can't compete with those numbers. You'll never be able to grow on a scale like Overwatch or Street Fighter V or some kind of modern game like that if you're primarily a retro streamer. And again, like, I'm okay with that. Like, I like retro, I like the community, but that's something that kind of interested me. Is I wonder what the follower viewership would be like, because I actually watched some guy earlier today, and I don't think I would like it either. He had like, it was like 5,800 people in chat or something. He was playing Overwatch. It was actually 7,800, And like the donation thing was going off like every 2 seconds. Everything was going off like a follower alert every 2 seconds. There's no way that you could interact with chat. And I think I kind of prefer the retro smallness, the small community. But in the time that I've streamed, I kind of said this earlier. So the people that didn't really show up in time, I don't have a schedule. I just randomly stream whenever I feel like it. I think that's a bad idea. Like Bovine, for example, has a very dedicated schedule. Platinum Amazing has a very dedicated schedule. And I think these are things that help streamers grow, because you know they're going to be on like a TV show or something like that. And that is a very useful utility for a streamer. I don't do that. I'm sure if you guys follow me on like that notification thing, it's like Dave is streaming at like 2 o'clock in the morning, or Dave is streaming at like 8 o'clock at night. There's just randomness. Cross exposure, I think, is really important. One of the things that I noticed on Twitch, as I kind of said, like retro was really good for that, but Mario Maker was not. A lot of people that followed me for Mario Maker didn't show up to things that were retro, but a lot of people that followed me for retro showed up to different retro things. So when I started speedrunning Batman, if I played something else like Contra the next day, they were still there. And I think cross exposure helps grow a channel, but at least in my case, I don't know if it would be a very good thing to start. Because one of the things that I noticed is somebody that started with me, he was like a variety streamer, and his channel almost had like no growth, and it still struggles to grow. And I think if you're a new channel and you're doing variety streaming, it's almost like a nail in the coffin. And that's really sad to say, because variety streaming is really good. But unless you do like a variety show or something like that, I think it's a very, very hard thing to grow, because if you're playing like a horror survival or something for one night, and then you switch to like Harvest Moon, which is like a completely different genre, and then you go back to like some kind of like long play of an RPG, it's really hard to, I think, get somebody to follow you, and then come back for like the same kind of content. So I think people come back for personality, but they probably don't have varied interests that span all genres. It heavily varies, and I think that's partially why that I grew a following, because Batman is like one of the top 5 hardest speedrunning games or whatever. So I think if I picked up something that was a little bit more boring, like, I don't know, say like Super Mario Bros. 1, I don't think I would get the attention that I normally have. So I think to stand out, because if you think about it, like what makes you watch somebody and choose them over somebody else that's playing the exact same thing? So I did make a Twitch poll about that, and there was a bunch of different answers, but to me, the answer that I put was skill. And I think if I'm ever in somebody's chat, like you guys probably see me in chat, with the exception of Bovine, you're skilled at games. And I'm sorry, shots are fired there, Bovine, but sometimes you fire shots at me in your chat. No, that's okay. Bovine's good. He beat that Ninja Gaiden game on Game Gear, I think. I don't know. Something like that. But yeah, no, to me, if you ever see me in a chat, it's because you're skilled at something and you're good at something, and I like watching that myself. I'm not huge on personality-driven streamers or streamers with gimmicks or something like that. I think if you have an amazing personality, that's great, but you can be the most amazing person in the world and super friendly, and if you suck at video games, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be there. I do like skill, and that definitely is different for other people. So I think actually I have this up here. So yeah, when I made this poll a while ago, it says 62% of people watch because they regularly enjoy either chat or the streamer's personality, chat interaction or streamer's personality. So that's a huge chunk. 20% responded saying they like either the competitive gaming or speedrunning context of skill. So I voted for that. This one was weird. I didn't expect it to be that high. But a lot of people put on as like a form of ambient background. And I didn't think that was going to be a thing, but apparently 9% of people voted for that. 4% of people voted that they wanted to check out either new games or gameplay. And they wanted to be able to ask direct questions without having any kind of bias. So they didn't want to rely on like online reviews or like media sources or like that. So I thought that was kind of cool too. 4% it was just purely nostalgia. They wanted to revisit old things and see what they evolved to be or how they play or whatever the case was. And only 2%, which really surprised me, log in to watch Twitch, to watch like high profile tournaments or races or something like that. So like Evo or I don't know another one. I just watch Evo. But things like Evo. So those are some pretty cool numbers, I thought. But basically it comes down to if you're being watched on Twitch, it's probably because you have a good personality and you're good at chat interaction, or you're really, really, really good at a video game and people are willing to put aside the fact that you might not always interact with chat, like I sometimes do when I have Batman on mute and I play Batman. So I think that's probably the main two reasons that people are drawn. See, and I would actually agree with that, Bovine. I really do agree with that. And one of the great things that I think about your channel, and I think actually the whole retro community in general, is it's very supportive of each other. And a lot of people in the retro community want to grow together. And it's not uncommon that you visit somebody's channel or something and they give you like an on-stream shout out and be like, hey, you know what, this guy is good, this is what he does. And it's like that very much in your chat. You know, I've randomly joined your chat and you say, hey, this is Junkyard Dave, you know, he speedruns Batman, everybody should follow him. And I'm really grateful for that. And people have followed me. And it's very interesting because the crowd that you attract, being more of kind of like a variety streamer, is not the crowd that I attract. So the people that do follow me either unfollow me because they're like, what is this guy? It doesn't make any sense. He's playing the same game over and over again. Or they rarely show up. Or if they do show up, it's not a common thing. But every so often you do get that cross exposure. So I do feel grateful that, you know, you do shout out and you do things like that because the retro community is amazing. It really is amazing in that regard. But I definitely do agree. I do agree with that too. Like there is cross exposure. You'd be surprised, but I would literally say like 1 out of every 10 people that like retro might like something like modern fighting games or something. Like it's very low, but there is some cross exposure. And I do agree with that. There is zero competition in retro streamers. Everybody is very supportive of each other, and I really like that. And that's actually what I was going to talk about too, is casual versus like speedrunning. Is part of my growth, I think, literally had to do with the fact that I didn't play games casually. Because if you think about it, everybody's played that game. Like a lot of people come into my chat and they say, I remember this game as a kid, Batman or whatever. But not a lot of people, if anybody, can run it. I guess there's only 5 other people that can, because I'm currently 6th on speedrun, that can run it as fast as I can, which is like 10 minutes and 25 seconds. So that differentiates me immediately from everybody else that's watching me. They do have very focused interests, and I was going to talk about that also in 1 second. Because Platinum Amazing, I asked them ahead of time, I want to keep everybody's name anonymous if I notice something. But Platinum Amazing recently started a Castlevania marathon, and he has grown like crazy. He went from, I think, prior to starting that, something like 84 followers to almost 400. Like he's going to surpass me very soon. And his growth has been incredible. He's a very good streamer in general. But this is where I wonder, and I told him too, I was going to mention that, is if you stream a marathon, like all Castlevania games like he's doing, you do grow a very dedicated viewership. You do grow a very repeated viewership that's going to come back and watch you do these things. But at the end of Castlevania, it's like, are they still going to be there? And that's going to be a big question mark for him, because I do notice sometimes when he streams either modern or retro games, all the people that follow from Castlevania, they don't show up, or maybe some do. But when he streams like a Castlevania game, it's a full house again. So you can never have 100% of your viewership or your following watching you, but at the same time, it's a very interesting way that I think Twitch has a bunch of like subdivided communities where everybody likes something, but it's like very tunnel vision. Like it is interesting because you eventually see the cross exposure yourself streaming every day. But if you stream, you know, like 1 or 2, like I think, for example, for me, I stream Ninja Turtles speedruns, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 and Batman. And it's kind of interesting because sometimes people show up for both, because at that point they like me as like a personality or something. But then other times people only show up for Turtles and I never see them for Batman. They have no interest or whatever. And then the opposite is true. Sometimes people show up for Batman. So I think it's cool. yeah, it's a very tight-knit community, Polly. I agree with that. See, these are the analytics that I don't necessarily notice, but at the same time, I think it's important to be aware. Because you want yourself to grow, and I don't want to blow, if that makes sense. I don't want to grow blindly. I want to understand why I'm growing. And it's always been like that in life. So, I've always had like a little quote where if you can think, you can do. And if something doesn't make sense to me, I want it to make sense. Hey, Minute. Welcome, by the way. So, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, everybody's gonna have a varied interest. So at the end of the day, whatever you want to watch on Twitch, I think that's your own business. We'll see you in certain channels, we won't see you in certain channels. One thing that I did want to mention was webcam usage. And I don't know, there's actually, I think, been 3 streams out of my many streams that I've used a webcam. And I'm a little bit terrified of using a webcam, I'm not gonna lie. And the reason for that is, it's gonna sound incredibly conceited, I guess. I look okay, but I don't want people to associate me with how I look. So right when I started, I was like, you know what, I don't care about using webcam. I had one, day one, but I was more interested in people showing up and watching me for what I could do in a random video game. At that point, it didn't matter what I looked like. So I think I would rather have people not be aware and follow me because I'm really good at something than follow me because I look like something and I'm really bad. I don't want to be like that tank top Overwatch person, everybody is seeing. I kind of want to be anonymous in that regard. So this is a little bit out of my comfort zone, turning this thing on. My personal spread of interests, I would say it's probably like 70% speedrunning. If I'm in a Twitch channel, usually 70% of the time I'm watching some form of speedrun, some kind of game. And then maybe 20% modern or variety, such as a channel like yourself. And then maybe the remaining 10% something modern like Overwatch or Street Fighter 5. Yeah, I mean, people would be drawn for different reasons, but I didn't really want people to be drawn to me in a physical aspect, just more so anonymously, I guess. So there's a reason from day one I haven't used a webcam. And I think I've used a webcam like 3 times, so it's quite rare. I did one for a follower special, which again is something that's kind of interesting too, because I think Twitch has an emotional aspect where people are interested in seeing like reactions or the emotional response of somebody playing through like a very story-driven game or a very horror-specific game or something like that. And a case example was Elrock. Some of you might know him. He was playing through Chrono Trigger blind for the first time, and I was like crazy addicted to watching him play that because I knew everything that was going to happen. And same with people too. Like one of the times I did use a webcam, it was for that the game To the Moon. And there were so many people that messaged me saying like, oh, this is a really good game. It was neat to see your physical reactions. And I did cry, like I jerked a couple of times on screen. But with Elrock and watching him play Chrono Trigger, I was like glued. I was waiting for him. In the off chance, I guess if it happened to Elrock, it could happen to somebody else, so I won't spoil it, but there's some pretty major story events that I was very interested in seeing his emotional response to. And I think that's interesting because to this day, I've never watched anybody else stream Chrono Trigger, but because I've met Elrock and I like Elrock and he's a really good person, I was very, very interested in seeing his response. there's not a lot. I think that's exactly why people watch speedrunning as goals. That's actually something else that I kind of wanted to talk to you is like Arcus. If you watch Arcus's channel, he met his goal, and as he kept racing for his goal of 11:39, like his viewership kept climbing and climbing and went crazy. He went from a random 90, 80 people a day to like almost 500 people watching him a day trying to meet that goal. And it's very, very, very... And I think that's the same too. Like if you have an objective or a goal, I think people are more willing to tune in because then they understand what you're shooting for. It's not just kind of like maintenance. It's because you do have an objective in mind. And there's a person named Baze86, and him and I were talking about that. And he was saying Dexter, who recently lost the world record in Batman, was playing really good. And he lost it to Endy by like 1 second, I think. Endy has 10:04 and Dexter has 10:05. And he messaged me saying that Dexter's playing really good, and we were watching him stream, and he is playing really good. But he's not playing good because now he's maintaining his world record. He's playing good because somebody else is better. And I think when there's competition like that or an objective in mind, it changes the perception of both the runner, like the actual speedrunner doing the run, but also the people that are watching it too. So my goals in Batman were like sub 11, which is so easy now. I can die and still get sub 11. I can die twice and get sub 11, to sub 1040, which was really hard. And then all of a sudden sub 1030, which was harder. And now it's sub Funk Doc, a former AGDQ runner that beat it in 1024, and my time is 1025. So like when people understand these goals, I think they're more likely to tune in because it creates at least a more structured environment. If you just hop around speedrunning, as you say, kind of casually, I don't think it would garnish the same kind of viewership as it does if you have an objective or some kind of structured environment in mind. Oh, well, yeah. Super Mario Brothers is popular. Like, Darvian has obviously proved that. Darvian is crazy. But obviously he is very popular too, and for a rightful reason. Yep, and I agree with that completely. If you give somebody a goal or an objective, it doesn't matter if it's like in a speedrunning context, but just a reason why you're there and showing up. I think a lot more people are willing to show and spend your time with them or something like that. So I think one of the other things that you can kind of do to grow yourself, Dexter messaged me a while ago asking if I wanted to join PTT, and that was Pass the Torch. He wanted me to run Batman in there, and that was like the scariest run of my entire life because I screwed up the first stage. But this was a very unique experience. I've never participated in like an online marathon or like an online anything before. And I think if you want to grow on Twitch, there's two major things that you should probably do, at least if you're into retro and things like that, is join those competitions, join those races, because you get exposed to a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't even know that you exist. And on top of that too, you have to interact, I think, with your followers as well. And that's a big one, because one of the people that I follow on Twitch, he is amazing, like amazing at video games. He's always hard mode, always really good. He always beats things really fast. It took him like 4 hours to blind play Battletoads and beat it. Like, he's really, really, really good. He's got something like 187 followers, but he follows 0 people, nobody. And his chats are always ghost towns because I don't think he gives back to the community that is trying to give to him. So if you choose to ignore the people that are following you and never give back to them and only hope that they show up, I think there's a point where people hit a wall and they don't come back. And it's really important to give back to the community, because not only are you going to find people that you have mutual interests in anyway, but on top of that too, that's when you'll start to get people hosting you, or people following you from other people's chats, or someone saying that you're a good guy or something like that. And I definitely noticed that with him, because he's really, really good at what he does, but his growth is stagnant. He probably gets one person to follow him, like I would guess like every 2 or 3 weeks or something. It's very, very slow. But in regards to like those online marathons and stuff, I think that's a really important thing too. Is putting yourself out there and kind of building a brand name for yourself. Like, not necessarily a brand name, although I guess that does tie into like partnership and things like that, but more so just creating a unique name across several platforms. Like if there's one thing that I wish that I could do, I already changed my name on YouTube, so I can't change it to Junkyard Dave. But if you look up Anti-Hero for Hire, that used to be like my whole Street Fighter V persona and Street Fighter 4 persona. And you'll find weird things, like I was featured on event hubs and other things like that. And I can't change it to Junkyard Dave because I already changed it to Anti-Hero for Hire, because originally when I created a YouTube account, I was like, I don't know, 17 or something, and I named it something idiotic. I can't remember what I named it, but it was really dumb. So I changed it to Anti-Hero for Hire because I didn't want to make a new one. I didn't want to spend like 2 minutes. And then I can't change it again. You can only change it one time. But creating, I think, like a consistent platform across different platforms obviously helps with your growth, because then you're not like a multiple internet persona back and forth. So I think my original objective in Twitch was to just play retro games. It wasn't to speedrun anything. And then I found out I love speedrunning a lot. So I think that's not going to change. I'm going to speedrun stuff. It's going to be primarily a speedrun channel. I've always been a creator. I like creating movies. I like creating things. I like creating drawings. I like creating comics. I like writing. Like, it just goes on and on and on. So I think naturally a podcast was something that I wanted to do. I wanted a very interactive podcast where it was done like live, so you could ask questions like this and I could respond to them on the fly. But I don't think it would be like all podcasts all the time or anything. It's not going to happen. This is something that's just random that I wanted to do, and tonight I decided, okay, you know what, we're going to do it. Because if you think you can do, and I really like that quote. But I wouldn't say I had success on Twitch or anything. Like, I'm growing. I don't know if this will help me grow, but this is just something else I think. Like, I think one of the better channels that I follow is RGL, and that's Retro Gaming Live TV or whatever. They regularly host speedrunning tournaments. They regularly feature different speedrunners. Like, they're a very community-based, multi-user channel. And they create all kinds of different content. I think that's kind of what I want to branch out and do. Whether it's like with a podcast or something, maybe hosting my own tournaments, is creating some form of content that's external to my channel itself. So, you know, you can come and watch me play Batman, but maybe I'll start to host channels and I'll start to provide commentary or something, or maybe feature people. Like, I don't know how that works yet because I haven't really thought of it, but I do want to create, I do want to give back. I do want to showcase. So, you know, like another thing, many ideas that I had for like a podcast was interviewing people and their success on Twitch and stuff like that. Getting certain speedrunners to talk about certain things or goals, or maybe about a world record that they set. Just interacting and reaching out, with that audience. Because it's not just about me, it's about them too, right? Like, part of my success is because everybody that found me either believed in me or liked me or whatever the case is, and they hosted me and they followed me and they told their friends, like, okay, this guy is good. Yeah, and that's exactly why that I wanted to create something like this, because there isn't a lot of that stuff. There isn't anything, actually. And every single person that I told, like, hey, I'm interested in doing this, they're like, that's a great idea, but then nobody's ever done it before. So I do hope that we can kind of get the train rolling, and as stuff goes on, branch out and definitely highlight people and do things like that. Because I like podcasts myself. I think I would like really interactive ones, or I do like really interactive ones. It's not like the ones that are pre-recorded or whatever, and then you just kind of see them on YouTube. I like the ones that are done live. I've always been a big fan of like live theater and things like that, where anybody can interact. See, yeah, exactly. It's stuff like that. You know, and that's actually one of the things that I loved about Evo, was like Gutex and Ultra David and stuff like that, interviewing people. And to me, interviewing people that either screwed up their fight or won their fight was sometimes even more interesting than watching their fight. Like, seeing their mindset, seeing what they thought, seeing how they decided to do certain things or whatever the case was. 7 hours long. Oh my goodness, man. That's a long podcast. Like, I would have a cap, I think. Maybe about an hour. I don't know. It is on Twitter. That's exactly where I get like all my information from. Somebody posts that they broke like a world record on Twitter. That's it. And you know, sometimes like people message you or whatever the case is, which is cool too, but no. So I think moving forward, I really like that question, Bovine. Moving forward, it's something that I want to do with varying content. So you know, like sometimes I think if I create this again in the future, it would be kind of like an open floor town hall meeting where anybody can say whatever they want and you kind of shoot back and forth. There's going to be kind of like a basic guide of what to talk about or whatever, but I don't mind detouring and answering questions or giving insight or whatever the case may be. And then in the future, maybe building that so we can do something and interview, you know, random people from the speedrunning community or highlight random people from the speedrunning community. That's another thing that I really want to do, is highlight people, because there's so many people within specifically the retro community where it's really weird because like everybody seems to be connected, like everybody seems to know everybody, and then there's still people that don't fit into those links. So you can go completely unaware of like somebody that's ever existed, but everybody else knows. And I think highlighting people that don't necessarily have as many followers is always a great thing. Like when I'm streaming, for the most part, after my stream ends, I always try to host like the little guy, because I remember being that little guy, and then, you know, somebody awesome like Whitman or something hosting me with like 40 people, or Lanks hosting with 40 people. That makes a big difference, even if it's like my usual 15 or whatever the case is. Highlighting somebody else and what they can do, I think, that doesn't usually have that viewership is really important to help them grow as well. And I'm very thankful for some of the hosts, like, to put how unselfish the retro community is. Andy on his stream, I can't remember, I think it was 6,000 follower stream. He gave me his host of like 500 people that were watching him. And I was like, holy shit, Andy, like, thank you. And yeah, like he didn't have to do that, but he likes me or something, I don't know. But it's a very unselfish community, and I want to give back to it just like people have given to me. Yeah, there's going to be no shrimp talk, I can promise you. I learned my lesson posting about shrimp on Twitter. Oh my god, like everybody loves shrimp. So dumb. I was thinking somebody would be in my corner, but nobody was. So yeah, I think to summarize, that's probably good for now. This is a very kind of beta alpha thing. Something that I want to return to, something that I'll try again, something that gives me a break from the soul crusher that is Batman and the heartbreaker that is Firebug. But yeah, just to pilot episode. I don't even know if I would call it a pilot episode. I think to summarize really quickly, there's different communities, and I learned that in Twitch. You can't have 100% of your viewership all the time. I think randomizer races. Yeah, I think everybody gets Batmaned out. Like, I'm even Batmaned out, and I feel I love the game. But you know, I do, and see, this is the thing too, like a podcast to me was also a good idea because I like interacting with chat. And when I play something casually, I'm so good at interacting with chat. When I play something like Batman, only Batman actually, I have a really hard time interacting with chat in a meaningful way. So I feel like I shortchange chat. And like people come in, they say stuff, and I'm like, yeah. It's like one answer or something. Oh yeah, lots of people like Batman. Like everybody shows up. I think it's one of the cooler runs on the NES, and I think definitely now that I'm getting like sub 1030, to put this into perspective, like you probably wouldn't know it, Bovine, But I think Dexter, which was the former world record holder in 2013 or 2012, his world record time was 10:19, and mine is 10:25. So the fact that I'm 6 seconds from a former world record is pretty damn cool, I think. But to have that timing and capacity to play that game, it does require a lot of skill. And there's a reason why, if you ask a lot of people that are speedrunning in like the NES community, they all say like top 5, Batman is one of the hardest speedrun games. And it is. Like, it's all full of like 2 frame and 1 frame, and not 1 frame, but pixel perfect things. And a lot of people, I think, appreciate the hardness of that run, and a lot of people return to it because it is a game that I think a lot of people had as a kid that they just couldn't beat. And that was the whole reason that I decided to stream it one day, is I had it as a kid, and I was one of those people, I couldn't beat it. I can interact with chat, but it's like severely compromised. It's not like this where I can look down. I can tell you exactly right now, any single time that you see like Batman run across the screen and he fades to black because he's transitioning into a new room, that's when my eyes go like this and I read chat. So when I'm playing like Ninja Turtles or something else, it's a lot easier to interact with chat, and it's a lot better. That's also partially why I posted a paste bin saying thank you to anybody. I don't know if anybody read it, but sometimes I don't have the microphone on when I'm playing Batman, just because it's hard to think and concentrate and pay attention to all the visual cues and interact with chat and go back and forth. And it's not hard in the sense that I can't do it, but it's hard in the sense that if I do it, I start to become a little bit more inconsistent. And I was at the point where it's like, okay, you know what, I'm almost Batmaned out. I do feel the grind. It is mentally, it's just something else. So I wanted it to kind of be over a little bit faster. I want that sub 1024. I know that I'm capable. I got 1025 today, 1 second off. And when I get it, that's good. I'll focus on something else. But I think it was a little bit selfish that I had myself on mute all the time. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, having myself on mute, going from 10:51 to 10:25 in a matter of like 2 weeks is largely in part in the fact that I've been mostly muted playing specifically Batman. It's helped me concentrate a lot more. It's helped me pay attention a lot more. It's helped me improve a lot more. And I've improved more in these last 2 weeks than I think I've improved in the last 6 months. So that's definitely saying something, because I was not muted for the last 6 months. Yes. 1024 is, to put that into a different perspective, because again, you probably aren't familiar with the speedrun. In 1029, I made 7 errors. That's it. So from either getting hit or walking too long or something, and then in 1024, I think I made 3. So I'm basically running a 10-minute game that's full of pixel-perfect jumps and 2-frame jumps and all kinds of timing-intensive things, and not making a single error anymore. And if I do, then the run is dead. And I've never run against that form of perfection before. So as I told somebody else in my chat a couple days ago, my interest is an all-time high. This is the stuff that I love. But my morale is at like an all-time low. It's like, this is too much Batman. Way too much. So I'm caught in these crossroads where it's like I want to keep continuing, but at the same time, it's mentally something else. That's exactly why the reason I was like, you know what, should I do Batman today? I was like, no, we're gonna try something else. We'll do something different. And same here. I think like if Arcus grinded offline for even like 3 days, I'm sure he would have like 1138. Like 1130, I think TAS is like 1135 or something. Super Pitfall, no, absolutely not. And see, this is gonna be the cool thing too, is a lot of people that show up and play, or sorry, they show up and watch play Batman or whatever, speedrun Batman, I heavily think the next thing I'm going to learn is some Flintstones game, which is like the polar opposite from Batman in terms of character, in terms of gameplay, in terms of everything. So I'm very curious to see how many people show up interested, genuinely interested. I had one guy that was telling me he was like stoked for Flintstones runs, and I was like, man, you're the only one. It's just gonna be you and me, man, in chat. But yeah, I'm genuinely interested to see how many people show up for that, because I think that'll be interesting, because Batman is almost universally agreed upon in the NES community as both being a hard game and just a fun speedrun to watch. It's always been kind of like a fan favorite, probably because it's Batman. Like, Batman has a good history. But, yeah. I don't know how popular Fred Flintstone is in the NES community. I don't hear him brought up very often, so it'll be interesting. And I just noticed, because it's so dark in here, it just looks like I'm a floating head, like a decapitated head. Yeah, the music is good. It's a solid game too. Like, it's a solid platformer. Like, everything about it is good. And when you learn to run it, I wish that's something that I've said many times on my stream to random different people, is if you think it's a good platforming game, like, you are unmistaken. You are mistaken. It's a good platforming game. Like, it really is good. On a casual level, there's some really unfair parts, like the climb in 5-1. But if I could give anybody the capacity to speedrun it and do it like Deathless, it becomes a whole different experience. And it is very cool the way that that game was designed, with the mechanics that it has, that you can run through everything and the speedrun becomes possible, and it's actually really amazing. And it's a very, very, very cool game to do that. And you know, I guess I run like 5 or 6 different things, but that experience is not the same with those 5 or 6 different games that I've played so far. It's only unique to Batman. And I think it would be very similar to like Contra or other things where you expect to die or you expect to take damage, and all of a sudden you can beat this game without taking damage or without dying. It's like, it's a very cool experience. And I wish that I could give that to everybody, just because it becomes a totally different game. It's no longer hard, it's no longer unfair in certain places. Like, it's indescribable. It's very cool. I was very surprised actually how much I liked it. What do I have against colors? Okay, Cracker. Yeah, you criticized me for that. Go check the most popular video clip on Bovine Divine's channel. It permanently changes the way that I enjoy Batman. And that's actually been something that I've told other people too, is if you're interested in speedrunning a game, pick a game that you're not interested in returning to casually, because you will never return to that game casually again. Like, it's impossible for me to enjoy Batman on a casual level anymore. It won't ever happen again. And part of me makes that sad, because part of me that was a game that I would return to and I would randomly play like every other year or something. But now it's impossible. I think even in 10 years, if I stopped, like right now I'm playing Batman, even in 10 years if I came back to it, there's no way that I could play it the same. I couldn't. It would just be like speed running, old stuff would kick in, and it's changed forever. Yeah, Ninja Gaiden, sorry, Batman. It's true. You pick something that you like but don't love. And then, I guess if you really want to change it forever, then you pick something that you love, but... Yes, Canada is a giant black hole, Birdman. Just, that's it. So, what you see behind me, this darkness, when I'm done streaming, it'll just engulf me and then I'll be dead. So it was nice knowing everybody. Hello, Birdman, by the way. Yeah, no, I think that's probably going to be it for me. I do look forward to doing this again. I do look forward to branching out and talking about just random stuff in the retro community, interviewing, you know, prominent figures in the retro community, highlighting the little guys. Flintstones and more podcasts. I don't know about that. Flintstones, yes. Podcasts, yes. I'll figure out something. I think this one was a little bit premature, but at the same time, jumping into it is just something that I've always done. You know, like, it doesn't matter what it is in life or anything. If I want to do something, I just jump in and do it. That gives me the confidence to do it again, even if I'm not prepared. just getting out there and doing it. So I think the next one will be a little bit more structured. This one had a structure. And I kind of touched on everything that I briefly wanted to talk about, but I think it will be consistent. It's going to be something that I legitimately have to work on though. So even though I heavily prefer the mentality of like no cue cards, sorry, and just kind of talking as I go and thinking as I go, I should probably structure this out. And I agree. That's what I've always said. Just if you can think, you can do. And as long as you can do, then you'll yield results. But yeah, I think, as I said, in the future, definitely I'll try to do this again. I will do it again. I won't try. It will happen, I promise you. Hey Hoopty, by the way. I appreciate that. I really do. And I get that a lot too. Like a lot of people in chat say, you know, I'm a funny guy or I'm a destructive guy because I take chat and I ruin it. I seem to have a problem with turning into a monster, like one of those horrible Twitch trolls. I don't know, maybe sarcasm just doesn't register very well on the internet. I guess it doesn't, but I don't know. I get that a lot. But at the same time, like I don't feel like I give it back because a lot of the times I'm either streaming Batman and it's like muted because I'm trying to PB on almost a world record pace, or I do have something like a microphone on and I'm playing something like Turtles where I have like this awesome chat interaction, but at the same time that doesn't really happen often. Like to put it into perspective, I've grinded Batman really hard. This last month, I think I had one turtle run a month ago, and then one a week ago, and then one a day ago. So basically, in other words, 3 times I've probably interacted with chat in a meaningful way. So. Am I friendly? Okay, I'll take your word for it. Yes, and I'm very grateful that people know each other in my chat and there's a lot of cross exposure because I bring people together. Like I think anybody in the retro speedrunning community, they bring people together. It's kind of like your chat, for the most part, is everybody else's chat. It's just, it kind of like moves from one person to another and the interest is usually pretty high. Like obviously not 100% of everybody is going to be from one chat to a different chat. But there's a very high percentage of people that will follow you and will be aware of somebody else and you'll see them all the time and it's like this friendly neighborhood barbecue or something. But I'm definitely grateful that if I decide to be antisocial, which sometimes happens a little bit too often, that chat kind of interacts with themselves and keeps themselves entertained as I grind muted, trying to PB at a former world record pace. And I've really tried to balance that myself too. Like I don't know how many people notice it because obviously time zones and stuff, but if you were to watch all the VODs from my previous Batman runs, it's almost 50-50. I try to have a microphone enabled on some of them, and I try to sometimes I don't have it on. And I don't have it on because, you know, I had good runs or something, I feel good about the paces and stuff like that. So I know that people understand because there's times where you're watching other streamers and they don't interact until, like Andy's a good example. When he's starting to run Batman, he'll start to talk on the first stage, and then sometimes he'll talk on the second stage, and then after the second stage, like nothing, until he beats the game or whatever, or he kills Joker. So, and I mean, like, people get that, but at the same time, it shouldn't be chat's responsibility when they're coming into my chat to entertain themselves 100% of the time. I think that's failing as a streamer, to provide a good environment for chat. So I definitely appreciate that the people that do follow me sometimes have to like fend for themselves because I'm muted. Yeah, and I mean, like, that's one of the primary reasons that people watch that, right? Like, it's a speedrunning thing. I'm so relaxed, man. Like, I don't think I would yell or punch something or do weird things. I'd be like, yeah. Earlier today, I got 1025, and I think I literally said, yeah. Like, it's not. No, I will never add games. I will never add, like, chat-related games or anything like that. I will never add, on a lesser note, kind of like a donation incentive bar. I don't agree with those things. Because then at that point, people are coming to talk to a bot. And in terms of donation goals and stuff, I don't agree with that. I have donations set up. Obviously, I was okay with that affiliate thing. Like, I registered for that affiliate thing. But I'll never be that weird streamer that says, hey, you know what, you should donate. Or there's, like, silly donation sounds, or for different variables of money. Or I'll never say, like, hey, you should throw bits my way. Or there's never going to be a community goal at, like, $20 or anything. And that's weird, because I am actually very much a venture capitalist. Like, I own my own business. But at the same time, I would never encourage people to spend money like that. And I think my mentality about that is my time is worth money, but this is optional. Like, if you, I'll word it like this. If I decide, and I have many times, to donate to somebody or something on Twitch, it's because I'm using that money, I think, to say thank you for choosing to spend your time doing this, streaming this, or whatever the case is. Because you could go to a barbecue, you could do whatever you want to do that night, but you chose to stream. You chose to take time out of your schedule and stream to entertain me, and this is my way of saying thank you to you. Paul's always at 70, probably. I'm a pretty calm guy. Interview Bird. Dude, we will totally interview Bird. But yeah, in terms of, like, donation goals and stuff, I feel that's counterintuitive and almost exploiting. So you'll never see, like, a bar there saying, you know, I need $100 to buy a Dreamcast. If I want to buy a Dreamcast, you know what? I will buy a Dreamcast. I'll do it myself. I don't expect anybody that I've never met before to throw money my way to purchase something that I don't know. So, I mean, like, that doesn't seem ethical to me. So I wouldn't do that. It's like basically like walking out in the middle of the street, just asking like 10 people that walk by you, hey, can you give me $5 for a Dreamcast? Like, I wouldn't do that in real life, so I don't think that would transpose the intent either. Feel the same way. Yeah, no, I'm as I said, it's definitely my way of saying thank you, because Twitch definitely has replaced, like, TV, although I wasn't really a big TV watcher. So. Yeah, I will wrap this up, I think. And speaking of little guys, there's actually not many on right now. Oh wait, this has to be old. I'm seeing people that are in chat right now. I guess that's a better analogy. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't expect, like, if I was a street performer, I wouldn't expect people to do anything like that. It would be very much on their own will. Just because I put on a show or something doesn't mean that you need to pay for it. Alright, so speaking of really interactive and good streamers, Enemy TV is on right now. So, thank you guys for hanging out. I do like this a lot. I'll try to do it again. maybe have a bit more structure next time. I do feel like I touched base on a lot of stuff, but at the same time, I do like it, so this will definitely be a recurring thing for sure. Yeah, no, speaking of good people, Enemy TV is on. I really like that guy. And he is speedrunning stuff, so you can go say hi to him. But yeah, thanks you guys.